How's it going, everyone? This is my Overwatch gameplay. It's in competitive and I'm playing May, and today's commentary is going to be about a rap battle, JJDD versus Caustic. It's a very good one. If you haven't seen it, the link will be in the description. So JJDD versus Caustic. West Coast versus East Coast, and two of my favorites. JJDD has lots of quotables. Caustic is known as the career ender, so this is a great battle to go over. It was on King of the Dot. It took place in late 2012, I believe. And it came right off the back of Caustic, really devastating for people. This was right after Caustic had faced, respectively, Q Shinobi, Newell, Daly, and Jeffy P, and completely obliterated them all. In two cases, Jeffy P and Daly were beaten so badly their careers were ended and they were unable to continue battling. And the other two, Q Shinobi and Newell, it was pretty much just as bad. They were beaten into obscurity. So JJDD was really the biggest name that Caustic had faced after those four battles, not overall in his career, but between those four battles and this one. So it was a big challenge. Some people thought that, oh, well, he's not facing Jeffy P or Newell, but people kind of downplay those people, or Daly especially. Like, Daly was not an awful rapper. He was actually pretty damn good, and Caustic obliterated him, and he never rapped again, really. He'd had one GZ battle after. And, Jeffy P had some wins, but JJDD was a guy who was established. He was, had battled in Grind Time and URL. And Caustic really came out swinging, and I think really handily won this battle. I mean, he really, really bopped JJD. And JJD wasn't bad, really. He didn't choke. He wasn't as good as he is in other battles, but, I mean, Caustic really took it to him. In the first round, Caustic has some brilliant lines, and he comes out with the scheme that he does in several of his battles, where he talks about what the left hand will do and then what the right hand will do. And this is my favorite one ever. He says, basically the punchline ends with, leave one eye blue like 3D glasses, and it's a great line. And considering JJDD started so slowly, he kind of did this thing where he acted like he was rapping on different platforms, and it was just kind of slow and all sounded the same. I think Caustic pretty much with a few of these haymakers took this round and then kept piling on. He also has a hilarious line where he addresses JJD copying lines and then says, you're such a garbage-ass rapper, they should call you Chief Queef, but then he connects it to another line where he says, you've copied so many lines, they should call you Retweet. It's very good, very creative, and attacked JJD personally on what he actually does, not just generic, oh, I'm gonna kill you in this way. It actually addressed what JJD does in his battles and his perceived flaws. Because I think JJD is a talented guy, but he does have these recycling issues, which Caustic also addresses. In his first round, he talks about the recycling. And he has another great line. He has another great line about eating slugs like French cuisine. Really like that one. And keep in mind, JJD really didn't have that many memorable lines, so Caustic would only need a couple of these each round to win, and he had more than a couple. He also had a brilliant line, probably the best one in the battle, about how it pretty much was a rebuttal about JJD making fun of him because he was white and potentially dorky. And he said that if the King of the Dot fans were all Star Wars geeks and everyone in the room thought JJD was Jar Jar Binks, which is brilliant on multiple levels because it shows that JJD was alienating himself with his own style of gun rap, but also he equates it to the movie reference that JJD would think that the King of the Dot fans are, and then tie it into a character that everybody hates and a reference that everyone's able to get. And then he ends the round with this really good money scheme where he has lots of quotables, and it ends with put a cig to his back, like the cash on his, like the tats on his neck, and he names a bunch of things that are money, that are related to money, and it's a really good scheme. Then JJD's second round comes, and it's really underwhelming. There's not a whole lot of substance there. And then as soon as Caustic's second round starts, he addresses Soul, which was great because he had just come off of that after battling Jeffy P. And this was really funny. In the first round, he grilled JJD about recycling, and then laughed and said, well, how come I haven't brought any back? And then brought back his the first rule about being in the mafia is not being black, which he did versus Newell, which was hilarious. He also had aim one at your kid, tell little John to get low, which is a hilarious line because it's obviously a song reference too. And then he mentions being slept on, which is great because at this point, Caustic was facing legitimately good opponents because he had faced Disaster, Definition, QP, Caustic, and then he had gone through a tournament and pretty much won every one of the battles except for Definition. So he said, of course I've been slept on, I'm a California king, which was a great line because it really encapsulated how everything had been going in his career up to that point. Third round, John really doesn't say a whole lot, so Caustic is given the opportunity to run away with the battle. He has another great line where he says, where he addresses T-Rex and just basically just calls him a nurse, and then ties it into airing Scrubs out, which was funny. And then he has, the reason I don't watch John battles is because there's like a 90% that he says, the reason I don't watch John verses is because there's like a 90% chance they're not even John's verses or something to that effect. Hilarious. Then he has a great quotable from one of my favorite movies. He says, this battle's like Office Space. Watch a white boy beat the shit out of this copy machine. Hilarious. Works on so many levels. It's a great movie reference to hilarious Mike Judge movie. He's white, and that's something that John had constantly brought up and addressed. So if you can use something your opponent has frequently brought up against them, that's a great move. And it also tied into the fact that John was biting lines, or so Caustic had said and made a big point about pointing out. He was a recycler, so this copy machine line worked on many different levels and was hilarious. And notice he didn't set it up for a bunch of bars. It was just very succinct and hard-hitting. He also freestyled a bit about John using multiple choice. Like, I like the multiple choice and think it's funny, but it was nice to see some freestyle that addressed that. And he also I don't know, he did the freestyle and then I think he did a written right after about a similar subject that hit really hard about if you do the multiple choice thing and you love something, you have to let it go. I don't know if that was freestyled or not, but it was brilliant. And he also pointed out that John dresses like Roan, which is hilarious, because Roan, of course, dresses very particularly. And he brought up one of the outfits John wore in one of his previous battles and said that his camo pants that he was wearing then could not camouflage his faggotry. And then at the very end, after John had done a remix in the third round, like a Hitman Holla reference in a remix, Caustic did a remix and said he was going to remix John's face. So that's it. All in all, Caustic had an insane amount of quotables, and he really buried John here. And both rappers are very good, but I think this is at the peak of Caustic's career, and in my opinion, this is when I would have loved to see Caustic get a title shot. Because this was the point when every time Caustic faced someone, he would just obliterate them. I don't even think John was bad in this battle. He didn't really have that many quotables, but he wasn't bad. But if you look at the previous battles, everyone that Caustic faced was, beaten into obscurity. And that's why they call him the career ender. So if you like this, if you like Overwatch or rap battle content, subscribe for more.